I just could not believe that even though my stomach had gone to the 100 mil or whatever they say it is, I'm like, no, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. I just couldn't believe it because I didn't even know what it was like to lose weight. When it did start to come off, it was like, oh my God, this is incredible. Like it was just, and that's when the euphoria hits and you think, I can do this. This is great. But then you get to sort of 2 years and things change a bit. So that's why I came to you, because things adjusted and it got a bit scary and felt a bit out of control.
Welcome to the Bariatric Nutrition Coach podcast, where we empower you with weight loss surgery, nutrition knowledge, mindset advice, and inspiration so you succeed in your weight and health journey. I'm your host, Jane Stoltz, and I am a bariatric dietitian who has helped over 1,300 people on their weight loss surgery journeys. I'm also a solo mum, lover of long walks while listening to podcasts, partial to a glass of wine, and the ocean is my happy place. Join me as I dive deep into bariatric nutrition and lifestyle topics and deliver them to you in bite-sized, palatable episodes every Monday. Now let's go. So welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Bariatric Nutrition Coach podcast. And I love these episodes. I'm not sitting by myself in my office talking to myself. I'm doing a solo episode. Look, I love those too, but I really love when I have past clients with me, which I do today. I have the lovely Belinda, and I'm going to ask her in a minute to introduce herself. We were just chatting before we got on air, and I said to Belinda, I'm thinking of calling your podcast episode The Fear of Weight Regain, Grazing, and Feeling Guilty All the Time at 2 years post-surgery. And she laughed and said, that sounds familiar. So welcome, Belinda. Welcome to the podcast. I would love you to share anything you would like to share with the listeners.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me on here. It's very exciting.
Oh, no, I'm excited. I'm so thrilled when my clients say, when I ask them, yes to coming on my podcast, because I know it's a leap of faith, especially if you're not like used to being on podcasts. But yes, I'd love you to share, a bit more about yourself.
Yeah, well, as you said, my name's Belinda, and I did my surgery 2 years ago now, and I had my surgery on Valentine's Day, which I said is probably the best gift I've ever received on Valentine's Day, to be quite honest. It's been a very eye-opening experience, but overall, the best thing I've ever done, I think, for myself, honestly. The only regret I do have is that I didn't do it earlier.
Yeah, that is such a common thing to say. I mean, the early days, the first couple of weeks, people have sometimes that buyer's remorse.
Yes.
And it's also what's coming. What is this going to be like for me, and how am I going to get through? Am I going to get the results I want? Are there going to be major challenges, and what's life going to look like? So it's really stepping into a space that you don't really know what's coming. So it's so brave, and it's so lovely to get to that point where you say, it hasn't always been easy, but I'm so glad I did it. So that's beautiful.
For sure. I think the first thing I do remember that was really scary when you said buyer's remorse was that I kept saying to mum and dad, oh God, this isn't going to work. It's not going to work. Like no weight's going to come off, because I've had a lifetime of yo-yo dieting, and as probably everyone who's done this has, and it's just nothing ever seemed to work or was sustainable for long enough. So of course it didn't work. And I just could not believe that even though my stomach had gone to the 100 mil or whatever they say it is, I'm like, no, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. I just couldn't believe it because I didn't even know what it was like to lose weight. When it did start to come off, it was like, oh my God, this is incredible. Like it was just, and that's when the euphoria hits and you think, I can do this. This is great. But then you get to sort of 2 years and things change a bit. So that's why I came to you, because things adjusted and it got a bit scary and felt a bit out of control.
Yeah. So one thing I just want to touch on before we go to the beginning of your story, because I like to say all good stories start at the beginning. And I think that's really a great place for us to start. But a memory popped up for me. There's a podcast. Oh, it's called the Weight Loss Surgery Podcast. And there's a nurse practitioner. They don't put out any new podcasts at the now because she did a lot of them and then she stopped, but it still exists. And she had on a podcast a bariatric surgeon. So I thought this was really powerful. He was a bariatric surgeon and he then had bariatric surgery. And he said he had the same fear. What if this doesn't work for me? So that is the most commonly spoken about fear for bariatric surgery. So you just really shared that and captured that. And I know a lot of people are going to go, yep, that's either what I'm thinking pre-surgery or what I'm thinking a year post-surgery or 6 months post-surgery, or if you haven't quite got to where you want to get to. So thank you so much. So yes, you mentioned a little bit, Belinda, there about weight had always been an issue. And I would love you to share whatever you're open to sharing about your weight history. That's what we dietitians will call it, doctors will call it. When did overweight begin and what were the impacts in your life?
So as far as probably the pinpoint of time that I can remember as early as 9 years old, I thought I was fat. That's one moment I can pinpoint. I don't know, I think a cousin teased me about my stomach or something. So I was 9. Like it's just looking back now, I'm like, how ridiculous. Like at the time it was mortifying. And so from then, I don't know whether that just made me more aware of my body because I didn't realize there was anything wrong with my body before that point. So then it just started the habit of comparing myself to anyone else that was my age or a friend or something similar. And just from then on, it was just a cycle of comparison and eventually self-loathing and the internal monologue of bashing and guilt and just it's awful. I look back, I just had a photo recently I shared to Instagram for my dad's birthday, and it's back when I was 15 years old and it was at a year 10 formal, and I had a photo with him and I'm sort of standing with my arms crossed and everyone's saying, oh, look at you, you've got your snarky face on or something. And I said, no, that's me crossing my arms over my stomach because I thought it was fat and I felt self-conscious and I felt uncomfortable, and that was and they're like, wow, really? And I wasn't at all fat at that point. So it's just, yeah, I can really look back now and think, wow, just so many years of, horrible thoughts and self-loathing.
Yeah, and it's so impactful on those experiences, and it's society. We have a lot to work to do around people, women particularly, and also your body image and appreciating our bodies. And there's nothing wrong with any of our bodies. So thank you for sharing that. I would love to ask, when did maybe overweight or dieting start, Belinda? What time was that in your life?
Probably from high school, I think. So probably 13 years old, 14, I started thinking I need to diet because I'm too fat. And I had one of these friends who was just a really thin person. So my best friend was just super skinny. She was probably verging on underweight, really, but she was just a naturally thin person and she didn't diet or anything. But I would compare myself to her, which is ridiculous because we were just a totally different body shape and style. And looking back, it did me more harm than good, obviously, because I was never going to get that sort of physique. But yeah, just the comparison is awful. And I think that starts very young, especially I think the hormonal stage, especially you start. And I hate to think of it now with social media, must be because I'm old, because I'm 46. So, so I didn't have social media at school, thank God. So now it must be 10 times worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, but yeah, you're younger than me. So I always say anyone younger than me is a young lady. But it's true. And the comparison, so I do say there's wonderful things about social media. We get to connect with people all over the world and we get to feel less isolated, learn, all of those things, and have community no matter where we live. But then on the other side, there's always two sides to the coin that can exacerbate that comparison. Because as humans, we don't go around seeing all the people that we think we're, I'm doing air quotes, better than. We just pick out the people we think that are doing better than us. We're predisposed to that, putting ourselves in a position of not feeling as good. And I do talk a lot about decluttering your social media. But yes, what I mean by that is decluttering is taking away any of social media or things in your life that can be giving you messages that make you don't feel as good about yourself. But totally agree that what's online now and some of the crazy things that they talk about with dieting and body, yeah. So can you remember the first time, you may not, but can you remember the first time you heard about bariatric surgery?
I think the first time was, I don't know if that was the first time I'd heard about it, but it was the first time it was spoken about with me was my GP. And I went to her for something else and she brought up bariatric surgery and I came out just angry and mortified, like, why is she going on at me about bariatric surgery? It's always about my weight and that's not what I went for. And because it just always felt like anything I wanted to do or was tempered with, oh, but you need to lose weight first, or oh, but you need to do this first. So I was kind of mortified, which I laugh about now, but I think that was probably the first time that I'd heard about it directed at me. But actually, no, prior to that, I did have a friend who went through it probably 10 plus years ago. And that would have been probably the first time that I'd really, before that, it was all the sort of gastric banding, but then, which I'd always just thought was something that other people did. And then, yeah, this friend that had the sleeve done, that was the first time I'd really started to hear about it in more detail.
And so from that, the idea of being introduced directly to you by your GP, and it took you by surprise, what followed? So did it ruminate in the back of your mind? How did you get from that point to actually deciding to have bariatric surgery?
It did sit in the back of my mind, but I still again thought, oh, that's something that other people do with, I don't know, more severe health problems or more weight or more money or something. I don't know. I just always put it off to something I could have. It was a bit out of my reach at that point. I didn't really understand enough about it probably.
Yeah. And how long was that GP appointment from having surgery? Like, what was the timeline?
Might have been about 2 to 3 years.
Okay. Yes.
Because in between, one of my very close friends went and had it done. And that was when I really cemented the idea of, okay, if she can do it, I can do it. Because she'd been a flatmate of mine and I knew that if she could handle it, I could handle it, because it all seemed a bit scary and unknown and, oh gosh, I don't know if I can do this bit and I don't know if I can do that bit. But when I saw that she managed it and had brilliant results, I thought, oh yeah, I can do this now.
That's wonderful. Okay. So, and that is really very normal as well, very common that you have someone close to you and you can see them go through it, and that kind of then makes you feel a bit safer about taking that step and looking into it more. I've heard it's around the average of thinking about it's around 2 years. I haven't seen actual literature, but it's certainly not people's first, second or third or fourth or fifth option from having surgery. So when you reached out to me, so you're just 2 years now, and I was saying to you, we were sharing before we started recording, I looked back at your application and that's where I pulled out like grazing, feeling guilty, protein, you know, the things that you wanting to know about more about protein, that's what you reached out for me. But before we get to that, I would love you to share the early days. You had that fear of it wasn't going to work for you. But then you started to lose weight. What did the first few months look like?
So the first, I think, 10 weeks were tough, just because, look, I had to do a 2-week pre-op diet on OptiFast, which still gives me nightmares. I hate that stuff, but it's means to an end. So I did it. I understood the reasoning behind it. The doctor explained it all well, and it was fine. got through that. But then post-surgery, you know, the 2 weeks liquid, 2 weeks off, 2 weeks. Yeah, that whole program was tough because everyone said I wasn't going to be hungry, but the first 2 weeks I actually was feeling hungry, and I felt really sad, to be honest, because I was actually staying at my parents' house just for the company, and yeah, they would be cooking and they'd have their breakfast and I'd be like, oh, that smells really good, and I could only have broth. So it was a bit sad, but now, I mean, it's something I'd do again in a heartbeat because it's just so worth it. And then, yeah, once, I think after the first month, I'd lost just 10 kilos out of nowhere, which I couldn't have done if I'd stopped breathing. I think prior to that, it just felt like I couldn't have dropped any weight. So 10 kilos to me was insane. That was huge. So that really gave me the boost to keep on with the next. And before I knew it, I was eating normal foods again and whatever I wanted. It was just drastically reduced amounts.
Yeah, beautiful. For people that aren't aware of OptiFast, many people are, and it is available in lots of different countries in the world. In Australia, we use it really like they're VLCD, they're very low calorie, high protein shakes or soups, puddings, and they're a product, and they are available, say, in the US, but they're not as readily available, say, in the US and some other countries. Whereas here, we can buy them in our pharmacy, and it's a fairly standard pre-op diet. Whereas, and I'm just explaining that, Belinda, because say some people in the US might be just asked to do some high protein shakes and soups, and everyone has different guidelines. And yes, you were explained to you, it's about getting some fast weight loss in those 2 weeks prior, really predominantly from your liver, because your liver sits over your stomach. And I used to joke with patients when I was working with a surgeon, I'd say, when the surgeon pokes and prods your tummy, he's not feeling that you have a stomach. He knows you've got a stomach. He's actually feeling for your liver size. So yeah, it's to shrink the liver because there's more room in your abdominal cavity to get all the instruments in and move around. And yes, the early days can be really tough. The dietary stages, and can you feel hungry? Yes, you can. You can have a decrease in appetite after surgery. It doesn't mean you have no appetite. Some people don't. Some people have really hard just even cues to when to, or eating and fluid. But some people still have an appetite. Often you have a decreased appetite and you eat a small amount and then you're satiated. Very, very normal. I think there's a belief that someone might have spoken to someone and said, I didn't feel like eating at all for months or something, or I had no appetite. And then people go into their bariatric journey thinking that's what it should be like. Well, actually, you can be hungry because you've got your cells saying, I want something to eat, please. I'm being underfed. And yes, and that's the challenge in the fluid stages. Once you get to full fluid, we can get protein in. But the clear fluids are a bit more challenging. But the reason why, and I'm just explaining this for other people, Belinda, is the fluid stages are very much around getting the tummy to heal and getting hydration up and then slowly moving on to food. So lovely, you got onto a normal diet. You said before right at the beginning you had this weight loss and you got this euphoria. I'd love to hear more about that and what happened with your weight loss over time.
So it was steady. There was a big drop initially in that first post-surgery food, getting up to solid foods again. And then it kind of stabilized, and it would be maybe a couple of kilos, 2 or 3 kilos or something. It kind of petered out to being that, but every week, which was just, I thought was fantastic, because at first I was thinking, oh, no, but I want another just 10 kilos and another 10 kilos. But it's actually felt more sustainable to come off that. I thought, okay, this feels like proper weight loss. They always say you should lose, 1.5 to 2 kilos a week or something. I just thought it was a better, slower, gradual weight loss. And I also thought that might be better for skin and the body shrinking back. And I'm quite lucky that I didn't have any excess skin, really. But they were things that I was thinking about, because they're all the sort of fears that you have going into it. Am I going to have this? Am I going to need further surgeries? Am I going to need this? Yeah. So it was very manageable. I did have I was lucky as well that I didn't have a lot of post-surgery sickness. So I know I've heard people do get a lot of nausea and a lot of issues keeping certain foods down. I didn't really have that, but I did, as my stomach healed, I did have a lot of post-meal vomiting. So, which was probably me eating too fast most of the time, because I would think, oh, I'm hungry, I've got to eat, and I'd eat and it wouldn't sit. So that was a learning curve as well, as to learning the bodily cues, which a lot of them I found on social media. So yeah, which is great. The hiccuping, the yawning, the burping, all of those. So if I started to get a hint of that, I'd know straight away, stop, you cannot get any more in or you'll be sick. So it is a real big learning curve. It's huge.
Yes. So take me back, or take us back to the point where you reached out to me for support. Because yes, I went back to your application form, and I think that's sometimes really nice to go back to where you were and then see how far you've come. And I'd love you to, can you take us back to that place of what you were struggling with and why you thought you needed to get some support?
So there's probably earlier this year, and I just started freaking out a little bit because I did have a little bit of weight regain, which, well, first of all, it just stalled, which I'd heard, yes, it can stall, and it can stall for a long period of time and then start up again. It's just quite a natural part of the progression of post-bariatric. But then I started to get regain and just thought, oh my God, this highly traumatic. It really hit me for six, because it's one thing. Yeah, I can't even explain how awful it is, because it's literally you think, oh gosh, I failed at this as well. It's just another black mark against the whole weight story. And I was on Instagram and looking at a lot of other accounts that are in the US, and there's a lot of them that have been through it and struggling with regain. A lot of them have put a lot back on, and it kind of freaked me out. And I thought, oh no, I don't want to undo all this work. Like, I went through all of that, and it was hard at different times, and then it was thrilling, and I just kind of wanted to make sure I've done all of this, and I want to continue the way I was going. So then I stumbled across your page, and you were saying all the things. Are you worried about weight regain? Are you worried about snacking? Are you worried? And I thought, yes, help. So that's how I ended up messaging you.
Yeah. Look, the things you came to work with me for, well, your struggles are so normal and so common. And I do say that to people when they reach out, and it's not to minimize how you're feeling at all. Oh, this is common, this is normal. It's just to say you're not alone, and it's not you, just it's you. As you get further from surgery, can you eat more? Yes. Do old habits come back? Yes. And it's just something that it's another stage of your journey. Okay. And people say terrified of weight regain. It's such a strong word. And I remember when I first started working in the area and people say the word terrified, I'm like, wow, that's a really big word. And I get it. It's that, no, not again. And all of the emotions that come with it. We talked about not knowing about protein and how much to get, feeling guilty. And that is such a common thing, not being confident in what you're doing and what you're eating, and really feeling, then there's that guilt, and then there's that cycle. So I just wanted to encapsulate kind of what I read, also what came from your application form. So let's move into the work we did together, because we worked together, and people listening to the podcast, this is also a video. I'm videoing. And for some reason, my ring light, to make myself look less shadowy, is...
Oh, is that what you've got? That's why I look like a ghost. I needed to have that.
Yeah. And it's flashing at me. So there's flashes gone off. And it did it this morning in a live. Anyway, I'm going to... And I thought it was my puppy playing with the cords, but it wasn't. Blame the puppy. Anyway, so I just thought I'd let, if anyone's watching, and Belinda. So yeah, let's go into what we did together. And I know you do. Yeah. What were some of the things that you gained from working with me in my boot camp?
So one of the main things I realized when I started the panic about weight regain was, my first thought was, oh, I've got a diet. And that filled me with dread, because I thought those days were over and I didn't need to worry about dieting anymore. But then I realized I didn't have enough knowledge from post-surgery, and I really didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know if I was eating properly. I didn't know if I was getting all the right amounts of things, if the things I was eating was okay. I just had no idea. And I realized that other than you should probably hit a 75-gram protein mark a day, I didn't have anything else to go on. So even if I wanted to diet, I had no idea. And I knew I couldn't just do what I did pre-surgery because it clearly didn't work. So, and I didn't want to diet. I wanted to work out, how do I sustain and eat properly with this new tool? How do I use, I've got the tool, how do I make the most of it? And it's going to work if I use it properly, because I've seen it work. So I really just wanted to know, what am I doing wrong? And it turned, I was snacking a lot, which turns out because I wasn't eating enough throughout the day or at the right times of the day. I wasn't having enough protein. I wasn't weighing my protein, my meats, etc., in the right way. So little things like that I tweaked that made massive difference. My fluid, I wasn't having enough fluid, just an increasing some, what do we call it? Body movement. I like that better than
Yes.
exercise. Sounds nicer.
Moving the body.
Yeah, moving our body.
It
Yes.
is. Because exercise, it's a bit like the word diet. We have a diet, but we've given it that kind of that twist of you're on a diet, because we use the same word interchangeably. And exercise is a bit like that. Exercise is about moving the body, but we also think exercise, often people feel, especially when you've dieted and tried to lose weight for years and years, it can feel like punishment.
Oh.
People force themselves to do things that they don't enjoy because they think they have to. And so then there's this feeling of, it's not a good thing. It's got negative feelings associated. So I like moving the body because you can do bowling, you can run around with the kids, you can do line dancing, you can go back and play netball. Some people are probably like, what is netball? Google it, ladies. It's predominantly females, and I'm not even going to say it's a version of basketball.
No, better not.
No, but it's fairly Aussie spread. But yeah, moving the body and I always say, like, also talk to you a lot about this, Belinda, something that puts a smile on your face and you enjoy it. Because our bodies are made to move. And after surgery, especially when your energy comes back and you're getting good fuel in and fluid and you feel better, we want to find things we really enjoy and get that lovely feeling from movement. Doesn't mean that some days we're not going to enjoy it. We're just like, time out. I don't feel like doing it. But the research shows that regular movement in the body, regular movement is really pivotal and really important for weight maintenance post-bariatric surgery. Yeah. So it could be a walking group. It's really about being creative. And I do say to people, what did you like doing as a child? What did you like playing? Because when we play, or even dancing, that can be a way of moving your body and you don't even know you're doing it. So yeah, it's really a mind shift. So beautiful. So yeah, you had some really amazing progress and wins around snacking and grazing.
Definitely.
And I remember you weren't probably eating regularly enough protein, all of that, and then leads into that grazing drop. And then that leads into you feeling confident and that less guilt.
Yeah, 100%. That's one of the biggest things I think I've got from the program is I just felt stressed in my head. That voice was back again and it was constantly on at me. It's my little devil voice that just hates me. And that's gone again because it's not like I don't still snack at times maybe when I shouldn't, but I know I have the knowledge now to know, okay, that's not great, but I know when I've got to do it right. So I meal prep for during the week, I'll meal prep the night before. So I've got everything set out, including the snacks, all ready to go in the morning when I leave for work. Little habits like drinking on the way to and from work just to try and get fluid in rather than trying to scull a whole litre of water in at 2:00 in the afternoon because I haven't had anything. So just the planning and knowing the knowledge is power, as they say. It helps in every way. So yeah.
And you just said, like, what I picked up on was that leaving that kind of, I've gone off track, I'm bad, this is all going to fall in the heap, to, oh, okay, I've gone off track with compassion. That's okay. I know how to get myself back. I know, okay, make sure I've got good options on hand. I know when I eat them, I feel satisfied.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's beautiful because the dieting world, I don't know if other people have listened to me talk about eating cycles. And that dieting world is that restrictive eating cycle. Good, bad. If you go off track, there's shame and all of that. Yeah. And it's a heavy weight. And when you don't feel good about yourself, it's harder to do good things for you and self-care. And then what do? You then bounce into overeating cycle. And
Yep.
there's that, yep. And as I say, in the overeating cycle, you're not thinking broccoli and salmon. You're thinking, yeah, the discretionary food. That's even your dog just laughed, I think. I'm just joking.
She thought that was ridiculous too. She's like, nope, she doesn't think about salmon and broccoli.
and yeah, and you eat quickly and all of that, and you overeat, and then you feel really bad about yourself. And it's this kind of that cycle, and
and then eat a bit more because you feel bad, and the food in your mind, you think it makes you feel better, but it really does maybe while you're eating it. But as soon as you've finished eating, then you feel rubbish and you think, oh God, and it's just, a cycle.
And I need to go back into restriction, another diet. Beautiful.
Yes.
And
yes.
so you picked up, and that's that the diets don't work because they feed in to that emotional kind of restriction. And yeah, what we worked on, Belinda, and you did so well at picking up because you worked really hard in the program, was that mindful eating, intuitive eating, that all foods fit, relaxing, and you're human. You're never not going to go off track. You are going to go off track. And I say that all the time because you probably need to hear it 100 times to really hear it. Because for years, dieting has said, you've got to be perfect. You've got to do this, you've got to do that. And that's not life. Like, we are flawed. That's okay. You don't have to be 100 perfect to be successful.
Now tell me, is this you? You have had your bariatric surgery and you're feeling lost, you're lacking support and you don't know what to eat and when. Or you may have noticed after your surgery, your hunger and cravings have started to return and you are scared you won't reach your goals. You may have had some weight regain and you want to stop the weight regain and lose some more weight. You may be pre-surgery and you want support to be fully prepared for your weight loss surgery journey. If any of these sound like you, then listen up. I have developed my Bariatric Nutrition Bootcamp just for you. My coaching program provides education, coaching and community for people getting ready for their weight loss surgery and at every stage after their surgery.
You were so fantastic. You didn't just go, here you go, off you go. You were like, right, here you go. Let's do it step by step. And it's that step by step. If somebody's prepared to help you like that, it's immeasurable. It's priceless.
Your help just changed the game for me, right? It just changed the trajectory of my ability to understand what my body's telling me and trusting it. That was a hard one, right? Because my body, I can override it in a lot of ways in the past.
I think that hiring Jane has actually been the best thing that I've done. I was lost. I had no idea what to expect. I've never done bariatric surgery before. I've never had it done before. So yes, you have all the information from your surgeon and from their nutritionist and all that sort of stuff. If you have lifetime support, that's great. But a lot of times you don't. So you need to take that next step and invest in yourself because that's what it is. It's the most amazing investment that I've made.
There are 4 key areas that I focus on with my clients in my Bariatric Nutrition Bootcamp. One is the Bariatric Nutrition Basics. You will learn what and how to eat so you feel satisfied, reach your protein and fluid goals and have less cravings, and know how to manage your hunger in the future. Meal ideas and meal planning. You'll learn to plan meals and snacks that you like, so you have great options on hand when it comes time to eat. Also, we focus on mastering weight regain habits, identifying any habits that are stopping you from reaching your goals and create manageable strategies to get back on the straight and narrow so you can manage your weight for the rest of your life. And also, I focus with my clients in my Bariatric Nutrition Bootcamp on learning to trust your body and food. Start to enjoy your food again by relearning to listen to your body cues so you have less guilt and improve your relationship with food and your body. If you are ready to maximize your weight loss surgery results, feel confident in your journey, and be led with support and expert guidance, then the Bariatric Nutrition Bootcamp is for you. If you would like to know more about my coaching program, check out the link in the show notes.
Thank you for sharing that. You did so well in your meal planning and shopping, and I think that was you shared how that was a great help for you. How did you feel about the personalised meal and snack lists?
Oh, they were brilliant, because I realised a lot of this stuff I didn't even know until I started doing these exercises, that I didn't really know what to buy when I went to the shop. And I bought what I thought was healthy. Oh, I'm buying crackers and I'm buying cheese and I'm buying cereal and little tweaks of, but just having a look at this particular cereal versus this other cereal, which to me tastes the same, could be a massive difference in my calorie intake. And it's little things like that that were teaching me how to shop better, smarter. And now I can go to the shop and I'm not just standing there sort of staring at the shelves thinking, what am I going to buy? I'll buy chips. I'm actually making informed choices, and it makes my shopping easier because I know all the things that are good for me and that, stop me from wanting to snack. I can have, if I go to the fridge, it's my snack time. I can grab a little Baby Bell. I know that's going to sit well and I won't feel sick, but I won't feel hungry, and it'll get me through to dinner. So little things like that were really helpful and more personalized, because I also am useless at, as you found out, being a bit adventurous with my food. I'm a bit boring. I always say I could eat like a dog or just have the same thing every day, but I'm not very inventive with my cooking. And okay, someone else does it for me, but I'm a bit slack and I don't have much imagination. So that was really helpful. You gave some great ideas of foods to put together that worked really well, and all things that I would like to eat. And I've got a list that I can have on my fridge for, what am I going to eat? Oh, yeah, that works. It's takes all the guesswork out of everything, which I love. So beautiful, beautiful. Because also when we're hungry and tired, our brain doesn't work properly, and emotional. We don't remember, okay, I remember what's on my list. We need things in our environment to support us. So that is wonderful. So thank you so much. I'm going to compliment you on kind of recognizing, okay, I'm stuck. I could go off on one direction, but I'm going to get support and find out what I need to find out, because feeling confident, I think that is so important, because this is a lifelong journey. It is probably not the best analogy, but it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And it's ups and downs. And you need, I call it tools in the toolkit. You need education, but also how to put it into practice. So thank you so much. Had you have any advice? I'm putting you on the spot now, Belinda, because I don't think I was going to ask you this question. Any advice for, imagine you talking to the Belinda that she'd seen her GP a little while ago and the GP mentioned it and she was still really peeved off with the GP. It's because I knew in my heart that she was right, but that wasn't where my head was at that time.
When you feel like someone's maybe criticising you and you criticise yourself all the time.
And she wasn't at all.
Yes. Any words of wisdom or reflecting on you as a person pre-surgery in that contemplative stage I'd love you to share?
I think just keep an open mind about it, because it's not out of your reach and you can do it. You might be feeling like, I can't do this, it's too hard. Think of all the things that you've done up to now, all this crazy diets, all of the awful self-talk. I mean, all of that is hard. You've put up with a lot already, so you're probably strong enough, more than strong enough, to do this with your eyes closed. So just take a leap of faith. You can put it on me if you hate it, but trust me, it's worth it. It really, it's not something I think anyone would regret. And everyone that goes through this life cycle of dealing with being overweight, I just don't see how anyone would find it a bad experience. And they're all strong enough to get through it. If I can, literally anyone can, because I felt like I was a big sook. And I managed to get through it. So
yeah.
Yeah.
But also, I think the good point there is that you're also open to support if you needed it. And some people go through stages and sun's out, I call it the sun's shining, everything's fabulous. But just also being aware that if you ever need support, you reach out for it.
Yeah.
Because I have another analogy I use, it's a bit like you're going for gold at the Olympics. You're going for gold with your own health and weight. And people go to achieve amazing things, generally not on their own. So if you go through a stage and everything's wonderful, you don't need help, not a problem. But if you ever need help, do reach out. Go back to your bariatric centre. Who's around you that you need? And I'm not necessarily talking even about dietitians. I'm talking about, do you need to talk to your surgeon again? Do you need to talk to a psychologist? Do you need to talk to someone that helps you even move your body? You know?
Yeah.
And so lovely. Thank you so much for
That's
sharing.
another thing. If you didn't feel that you connected, say, with a dietitian or GP or surgeon, particularly on a support level, don't just think that's the only support you've got and think, I'll just work it out on my own because I can do that myself. I don't really get on with them or they don't really understand me. Find someone who does and get the support because you need it. And that's what I did. I found you to help me, and that was the support that I needed, and which was great because don't just sort of think there's no other support out there. There's lots of support out there. So if you're not happy with where you're currently, then try and reach out and find other options.
Exactly, yes, and advocate for yourself. Ask for what you need. So beautiful. So thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure, and it was an absolute pleasure working with you. You work so hard, and I really appreciate you being on here and sharing your experience because I know people get so much value, no matter where they are in their journey, about hearing other people's journeys, because it really normalises the struggles, it normalises the feelings and all the things that you've shared about your struggles with weight before. And that's a very common point of when the ship starts turning in the other direction after bariatrics, and that panic. So thank you so much, Belinda, and I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for your help.
You're welcome. Okay, bye for now.
See you later.